We're paying ahead for pharmaceuticals here. Earnings from big players like Merck and Abbvie, setting the tone for an industry with a mixed quarterly outlook. Here with a read on the headwinds facing drug makers and what this means for investors watching the space. It's Yahoo Finance's Anjalee Khemlanin. Anj, what have we seen so far?
Well, as we know from the last week with J&J and others, we're seeing a little bit of a mixed outlook for this sector. Let's take a look first at Abbvie, which we saw facing a little bit of pressure from generic competition. Not as much as they expected, but for Humira, they did expect that to come in the first quarter as we saw, that rush to include biosimilars on formularies. So we're seeing how that's playing out. Not too much of a hit just yet. Still, the stock is down. Meanwhile, Merck loses big on the decline of the COVID treatment, molnupiravir, down by, I think, more than 80% was the number. So that's huge. But of course, it's got a diverse portfolio. So they were able to buck up with Keytruda, their blockbuster, and Gardasil. Still some headwinds there for Keytruda. As we know, it's coming into potentially the fall off of the patent. So that's sort of where the focus is. If you look at sort of the upside for these companies, it really is just looking at the broader outlook for the portfolio. We've seen some pulling back even on pipelines, taking a look at Biogen and Novartis this week reporting a decline in their pipelines. Biogen cutting a little bit, Novartis cutting 10% of its portfolio. And so you can see sort of this right sizing, focusing on blockbusters as well. Eli Lilly, meanwhile, did get some positive results out of its obese diabetics, for Mounjaro, the reduction in weight loss for obese diabetics by 16%. So that's pretty good. Definitely some positives there. So all told, as you can see, downside is definitely generics pressure, either immediate or upcoming, as well as the loss of the COVID drugs or, portfolio for products for whoever did have it. And then on the upside, you see more long-term growth, long-term outlook, and upgrading their 2023 outlook as well.
Yeah, it's interesting to see all of this sort of resetting, right? Retable setting following the as we get out of the pandemic. One of the ways, of course, a lot of them have been building up pipelines is through making acquisitions.
Yes.
And presumably there will be more of those. Do we see that sort of like bearing fruit? And is this going to be another big deal year for these companies?
So far, yes. So far, it looks like, of course, we've already seen some of the big ones like Pfizer, right? But we definitely know that they are looking. Merck has been struggling to acquire more assets. That's been one of the concerns from investors. We've seen those analyst notes pointing to that. But we do know that it's gearing up to be a pretty big year. There is a shift in sort of what may be, a nice target for these companies. Previously, we know cancer has been huge, but it seems like that's not getting as much excitement this year. So it's going to be interesting to see what disease state and what sector really gets all that attention this year.
Yahoo Finance.
Good if cancer would get.
I know.
Well, yeah, absolutely.
Anyway.
Yahoo Finance's own Anjalee Khemlanin, thanks so much.